December, was meant to be the start of global government. Ban Ki-moon, the UN secretary, basically made the announcement in the New York Times, an op-ed piece, the dawn of the beginning of global governance, of course. But and the head of the EU did so at the same time, It didn't work in Copenhagen because the small countries found out that they weren't going to get the benefit of all this largesse coming from the carbon producers, but rather they were going to see austerity too, and that the money was really going to the IMF. And the IMF is to fund world government, and it's bureaucratic world government. And again, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, is just a branch of world government. So both parties were involved in voting for this branch of world government, giving away our constitutional right to control our own trade. The tax part of it is just that, and the carbon tax is a way to get each and every one of us and all the industries in our country. We're still not sure whether China is going to take part in this. In fact, as the last I heard, they weren't. But we have already committed through Mr. Obama to take part, even though the Congress and the Senate haven't really said so. In fact, at that meeting in Copenhagen, I have on tape Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, saying, "No problem, the Senate will pass it." And I looked at that and I thought, how can Nancy, head of the House, tell anybody what the Senate is going to do? But she did, and she did it emphatically. So all this stuff is going on behind the scenes, and I heard it said the other day that basically the bills that we see are after the fact. These things are already launched and underway long before. NAFTA, the Mexican trucks coming into the United States are the product of NAFTA. Again, why did we have to have Mexican trucks here? Because NAFTA said so. The open borders is also a requirement of NAFTA, the free flow of capital, services, product, and labor across all member borders. So you can't have sealed borders or closed borders, and if you have anything, you've got to have guest worker programs to allow that flow to continue. So NAFTA is going to set us up to have a flow of foreigners coming in to virtually every job we have available. Sir?
You can't have world government without doing away with the United States and our constitutional government.
Absolutely right.
The borders are wide open, and they want to have a comprehensive immigration reform to ultimately to break us up into what we would call a North American Union. In other words, to do here the same thing that they did in Europe. Where do you stand on that North American Union?
Well, the North American Union has gone through a denial process, but I think there's no doubt about it. When you see what's happening, the evidence is pretty clear that that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is really to bring down the United States. There's no room for an independent, strong middle class, vigorous, self-confident country in a world that's dominated by a bureaucratic government. Everyone has to be equalized, and no one can have any position of strength to rise up against bad policy. We have to go along and be good servants. So the NAFTA thing, as I said, the open borders, the trucks, the flow of workers, you see how they're fighting it. I mean, our Congress is supposed to be representing us. Our president that's supposed to be representing us is going out of the country to find support for his position against Arizona, even to the United Nations. And total violation of his oath of office. I mean, where does he get off doing this kind of stuff and still maintaining? I no longer call him Mr. President. I just can't. Mr. Obama is about as far as I can get, because he has turned his back on our Constitution, number one, and the American people. Sir.
Hi.
Ma'am, sorry.
Okay. Well, let me just say one thing. Global governance over my dead body.
Amen.
I think we can all, hopefully, all agree with that.
Yeah.
I admire the Constitution Party, I really do. what's the saying? You keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer. Well, I think you could put that towards both the Democratic Party, the progressives, and a lot of the Republicans. I would love to nominate Constitution Party candidates because I trust them. But at this time, and I've had this conversation before, in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, we didn't have the Tea Party. I think that's hopefully the buffer between the Republicans going, doing what they do or what they've been known to do and keeping them in check. It's a check and balance. It's just the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I've campaigned for some candidates, lately. And maybe it's just in our district up in Florissant. But going by the reaction and just the lack of enthusiasm, of some of the people we speak to, it's just, the Constitution Party, a lot of people don't even know what they stand for. A lot of people don't even know that we are a republic, and that irks me to know, and that I hear politicians, high office, calling this a democracy when it's a republic. But what I'm basically trying to say is that we're going to have a lame duck session after November 3rd, They're going to go for cap and trade, evaluate VAT, all these other things, and you can't do it if, you lose the votes to a third party in this case. You've heard this, we've all heard this argument before. But I think we're in a burning house, it's burning down. I don't think it's time to argue which window that we break out while the house is burning down on top of us. So,
Let me give you another analogy. We have an enemy across the field. We see them, they're dressed differently than we are. They're armed, they're staring us down, we're staring them down. We know that that's our enemy, and it happens to be dressed in blue. We have among our ranks subversives. We just don't know who they are. And as we go charging across the field at the enemy dressed in blue, the subversives in our ranks are coming at us from behind.
that's what the Tea Party,
And that
least
is the
the thought.
Republican Party. The Republican Party pretends to be our friend. As I said, Gingrich got the votes from the American people to put the contract with America in place and fill the Senate and House with Republicans. But before he did that, the very man that led that cause went over to the other side and voted for world government. And then when he got the Republicans in office, it was the Republicans that linked us up with Communist China, not the Democrats. It was primarily the Republicans. And they've continued to do that. Under Bush, we thought we were going to get a conservative in the White House and not a nation builder. We thought we had genuinely we could sit back now because we had a Republican in the White House. And we had a Republican Congress from 95 to 2007. 12 years of Republican control of the House and the Senate. And during that time, we got some of the most egregious legislation. We got the Patriot Act, the NTR China, we got the Real ID Act, we got all kinds of things. A war on two fronts, now three. I have got a list. Let me look at my list just to make sure. We got Abu Ghraib, the torture thing. We had the SPP, Security Partnership of the three nations meeting in secret. We got unsecured borders and prosecution of border patrol agents. We got Dubai Ports World to turn our ports over to this foreign entity. And right after Bush left office, Chertoff was still. Oh, we've also got the Department of Homeland Security, this huge bureaucracy that has essentially written the MIAC report. Have you heard about the MIAC report? That was all under Republican leadership.
We're all terrorists.
Yeah, we're all terrorists. And we got naked body scanners at the airports because we're all guilty until we can prove we don't have anything on us when we walk through these machines, that we wouldn't let our spouses look at us on demand naked, but we will yield to the government. I mean, we are being duped into believing,
I know, I'm sorry.
we are being duped into believing that somehow that, and the media does this to us, that that body of people, that party is bad and this one's good, when in fact they're both taking us down step by step. And we keep forgetting all those years of Bush. What happened to the pro-life movement? What happened for 12 years of Republican control of the House and Senate? Why didn't we resolve that issue in some way? It never came up. They all kept telling us that there was really no way they could do it. They can get all these trade issues passed, no problem whatsoever. But when it comes to something that has to deal with us, a concern of the American people, it's not on the radar screen. Yeah.
I've only recently started hearing some of these things that you're talking about from my daughter, who seems to be finding out a lot of stuff. But I don't understand if we're going to sell our country to global trading and just let it happen. The people who are in power and implementing that plan, what do they have to gain? I mean, is this a big conspiracy? Or why are they doing this?
It's called money. It's called money and power and position and control. It's the same thing that's been going on through the ages. You have this elite that consider themselves above the fray, and then you've got this working class serfdom. And that's the way they like it. They don't like a rising middle class that has authority and controls government. They want people to be living on the edge, not able to take time off work because their world collapses if they don't spend that day at work. So they have to keep nose to the grindstone as government goes along having its way with us. That's why the bailout, they didn't bail out the American people, they bailed out the banks.
Mm-hmm.
The banks, they're charging you with no hesitation 30% interest on your credit card if you don't pay. Meanwhile, they can borrow it from the Fed, who writes it out of thin air. I guess you guys all know about the Fed. For nothing. For nothing. And then they turn around and charge and have no reservations about saying 29.99% if you miss a payment. Boom. Just like that. You're nailed to the wall. Those are the people and the mentality that's driving this upper class fiefdom, if you will. And it's real. It's human nature. It's been going on for 5,000 years until the founding of our country. And we were kind of a break in that progress.
So all the people that are in now think they're going to continue being in forever?
Some of the people, the very, very affluent, are really running it, and those that are nouveau riche, if you will, they think they're in it, but they could go just as easily. And it's as plain as you can see. When you see our stores filled with communist stuff, and our Congress is not doing a thing about it. I mean, we lost our industry. We don't. Made in America isn't there anymore. It's not a conspiracy. It's not somebody's dream. It's as real as you can get. Turn it over. Made in China. And yet, our government that's supposed to be concerned about our security and our military being produced by our factories doesn't seem to be concerned at all. That tells me they don't want this country to have a manufacturing capability. And if we do want to get into a conflict, then we need to. Right now, we're being used as a military arm of the UN. We haven't had a declared war since World War II. Everything else has been a UN war. Sir, I'm taking your time. I don't want to be too much.
I didn't want to break it too much. But, well, thank you so much for...
Thank you very much.